Hey guys, my name is Serena. Welcome back to my channel. Today I have a video idea, and basically a month and a half ago I asked you guys on Twitter, what are your favorite books? A lot of you actually answered me, and I want to say thank you to everyone who answered. Basically, this is going to be a two-part video. In this video, I'm going to read all of your favorite books and see if they interest me, see if I've read them, and eventually putting them on my TBR. And the second part will be me reading some of your favorite books and, see if I like them or not. Either way, I respect everyone's, tastes in books. So I hope you enjoy these videos and stay tuned for the second part. The first person who answered me was The Ellie Effect, and her favorite book is Shadow of the Fox by Julie Kagawa. And I never heard of this book before, honestly, and I searched it on Goodreads, and it's a fantasy YA, and it's a series. I think it's about a girl who has a type of power, I want to say, and one day her house is burned to the ground and she flees her home with a greatest treasure. I do not want to read anymore. It seems very interesting and I'm definitely gonna put it on my TBR. Next, we have Alexandra Rosalie, and she told me a lot of books. I know that this is a difficult question, it is for me, but you can tell me your top 3, your top 5, I don't care. I will decide for the second part one of the books in your list to read. So I'm not gonna read every single book, but I'm gonna choose one of your favorite books in your top 5, top 3, whatever, if that makes sense. So she told me that her favorite books are Ocean at the End of the Lane, Chocolat, Pillars at the End of the Earth, Harry Potter, and the Wayward Children series. So from this list, I've heard about The Ocean at the End of the Lane. It interests me because I want to read a book by Neil Gaiman. It is a fantasy fiction horror magical realism, Goodreads tells me. So horror, that interests me a lot because I do not read a lot of horror in general. I have to find some good horror books. So if this is horror, I am putting it on my TBR. As for Chocolat, I watched the movie with Johnny Depp a while ago, and I know it's about this woman who opens a chocolate shop, and I remember liking it. Maybe I will read the book. I know it's a series, so I didn't know that. But yeah, it definitely interests me as well. Pillars at the End of the Earth. I didn't know this one existed. I mean, I think I've heard it before. I think it's called Pillars of the Earth. It's a series, and it's also a huge series. And honestly, guys, I'm really intimidated by big books. I am currently reading a Game of Thrones, and this is the first, big series, over 1,000 pages series I'm reading, and I don't know if first of all, I want to finish a Game of Thrones before starting another huge series with big books. I believe this is no, it's not fantasy, it's historical fiction. That is interesting. So we'll see. I'm definitely not gonna read it right now. Then of course, Harry Potter. Harry Potter is my favorite series as well, and I have read it, so yeah. And this is a series that I've heard about a lot, the Wayward Children series. I know that they are small books, and there are like 4 out so far. I know that there are about these children who come back from, those fantasy worlds, and it's a story about these kids who come back from these fantasy worlds. I'm very interested in this series. It's definitely gonna be on my TBR. Next, we have Brianna Rangland, and she tells me that her favorite books are The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton, Starry Eyes by Jen Bennett, and Nevernight by Jay Kristoff. Out of these 3, I've never heard about Starry Eyes, but I have heard of Nevernight, of course. It is so loved in the community, and I don't know what it's about. I know it's probably a fantasy, and I've heard it's about an assassin, and it makes me think of Throne of Glass. Either way, I've heard it's better than A Throne of Glass. So I definitely have it on my TBR, and eventually I will read it. Starry Eyes sounds like a contemporary. It is. It's young adult, it's romance, and I like the different genres in here, honestly. Oh, so the first line in the description says that Zuri and Lennon are best friends turned best enemies. It is a modern day Californian version of Montagues and Capulets. So it's like a Romeo and Juliet retelling, maybe. I hope that it's not a sad ending, but I'll put it on my CBR. And The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton. I know that this is a classic YA. It's like one of the first YAs. And I don't know what it's about. The novel tells the story of Ponyboy Curtis and his struggles with right and wrong in a society in which he believes that he is an outsider. So it sounds like a coming-of-age story. I don't know. It sounds like this kid who discovers himself in the society. Since it's a classic YA, I definitely want to read it one day, and I'm putting it on my CBR. Next we have Madison Story, and her favorite books are Heir of Fire and A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas, and The Wrath and the Dawn. So I have read A Court of Mist and Fury. My thoughts about this series overall is, you know, there are pros and cons. I really like the endings of each book, but some things are very cringy, some things don't rest well with me. It's like a solid 3-star series, I think. I need to reread this series eventually. And Heir of Fire actually is the next book in A Throne of Glass series that I need to read, because I've read A Throne of Glass and Crown of Midnight. And the next book is going to be Heir of Fire, so I guess if I want to continue on with this series, it's definitely on my TBR. And The Wrath and the Dawn, the only thing that I know about this book is a retelling. It is set in, you know, in Middle East, I believe. And it's about this king, I think, that takes a new wife each night, and then these wives disappear all of a sudden, get killed, I don't know. As I said, I really want to read more diversely, and I know this is set in the Middle East, maybe. Next, Hannah at TX Bibliophile tells me that her favorite series are Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams, Weekends with O'Keeffe by C.S. Merrill, and The Queen of Atolia by Megan Wallen Turner. Honestly, guys, I only heard about the Hitchhiker Guide to the Galaxy, and it's probably gonna be like a sci-fi set in space. So I have not read a lot of books about that, because for some reason sci-fi doesn't, I'm not attracted to sci-fi. I'm not drawn to it, you know. And Weekends with O'Keeffe is a nonfiction, so that's interesting. A lot of people's favorite books are fiction books. So it's about Merrill, a poet who was a graduate student at the University of New Mexico, was 26 years old, and O'Keeffe was 85, almost blind and still painting. And this Merrill takes care of this painter, this artist. The thing that interests me the most is it's a nonfiction. And honestly, there are some nonfiction books that I really like, but usually, especially when there were required reads for school, I always got bored of them. So the fact that there is a nonfiction recommended to me makes me so interested, so I'm gonna put it on my TBR. And there is The Queen of Atolia, which I think it has to be a fantasy. It is a series, and it's the second book in a series, so unfortunately I cannot read this one because I have to read the first book first. But it is a fantasy young adult fiction adventure romance, and it's about, oh, honestly I do not want to read the synopsis. Let's see the first book, what it's about. Oh, I've seen this cover before, The Thief. So it's about this journey of this thief who tries to find this ancient treasure. Next we have Nicole at Who Picked This Book, and she says her favorite books are Harry Potter, obviously. Second one is Archer's Voice by Mia Sheridan, and then Chill Factor by Sandra Brown. So I've never heard about these last two either. Archer's Voice is a standalone. Okay. It's a romance. By the cover I can tell it's a romance. In fact, it is a romance. It's new adult, contemporary. Oh, this sounds like a girl who goes to a new town and, you know, she seeks peace and she meets this guy, Archer Hale, an isolated man who holds a secret agony of his own. So, a man with a dark past, maybe? Oh, he is a man no one else sees. So is he a ghost? Interesting. Chill Factor is a standalone as well, and it is a romance, mystery, thriller, fiction, suspense. Guys, I love that you are telling me different types of genres, honestly. This is about a town in North Carolina. It's a sleepy mountain town, the kind where no criminal activities ever happen. But 4 women have disappeared from this place over the past 2 years. And every time these people disappear, there is a blue ribbon left in the spot where they last saw these people. So, I'm not going to read anymore, but it is about women disappearing in this town. It's a mystery. I never read mysteries, so I am definitely putting it on my TBR. I know it sounds like I'm putting every single book on my TBR. I don't care if I do. I'm on, obviously, for part 2, I'm not going to read the second book or third book or sequels in a series. But if the book interests me even a little, I'm putting it on my TBR. Next, we have Kathy at Kathy Tridhart. I hope I said that right. And she says that her favorite book is Words in Deep Blue by Kath Crowley. And from the title, I think it's a contemporary. It says that it's a love story, and it's the story of Henry Jones and Rachel Sweetie. They were best friends once before Rachel moved to the sea. Now she's back working at a bookstore. I like that. And she is grieving her brother Cal. So it sounds like a sweet and sad book. Since this is the only book she told me about, I'm definitely going to read it for part 2. Next we have With Cinnamon Please at Mary Among Books, and she says that her favorite book is Pride and Prejudice, and I've read this book I think a year or 2 ago. I give it 3.5 stars. I really enjoyed it. I need to reread it, and I need to watch an adaptation. I know that there are a lot of adaptations, and I want to watch one of them eventually. Next we have At Court the Bun, and she says that her favorite book is Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo, and finally a book that I own. I've owned this book for a long time now, and it is the first book in a trilogy. It is the Grisha trilogy, and then there's Six of Crows and other books in this world, so I need to start it. I own the main trilogy, the first trilogy, so I'm definitely going to read this one for part 2. Next we have At Yasmin the Reader, and she tells me that her favorite book is Radio Silence by Alice Oseman, and I recently acquired this book. Here it is. Love the cover. I know it's about this girl who has a podcast. Maybe it has a character in the LGBTQ community. It has mental health maybe. I've heard stuff like that, but I'm definitely going to read this book for part 2. I'm honestly planning on reading it in June. Next, we have Trisha Loves BKS Books. Trisha Loves Books. And she says that her favorite book is Pride and Prejudice. I already said I read it. The Stand by Stephen King. Oh my god. Okay, so I do not know the plot of this book, but I know that it's a huge book. Probably not going to read it for part 2, but I'm definitely planning on reading a lot of Stephen King's books. I read Carrie. I'm planning on reading, you know, in chronological order maybe. So next there's Salem's Lot, The Shining, etc. So maybe not for part 2. And that leaves me with Nevernight and God's Grave by Jay Kristoff. God's Grave is book 2. So I'm probably going to read book 1 for part 2 of this idea that I have. Next we have At Gabrielle 7013, and she says that her favorite books are Harry Potter, Nevernight. Again, I need to read this book, I think. for part 2, I need to read Nevernight. We have books Brandywine. She says that her favorite book is Ruins of Gorlin by John Flanagan, The Green Rider by Kristen Britton, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings by Maya Angelou. So I only heard about I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings because I've heard it somewhere. Let me search the other two. It is a series. It looks like an old series. It's from 2006. And it's fantasy young adult adventure. And it's about these villagers who are afraid of the rangers who practice magic that makes them invisible to ordinary people. And now 15-year-old Will, always small for his age, has been chosen as a ranger's apprentice. I'm probably not going to read it for part 2 because it is a series. And I have a lot of series started, so I do not want to start a new one. The other book is The Green Rider. It is a series as well. So I'm probably not going to read this one either. It is fantasy, young adult. So it's about this girl who is walking home from after a fight at school and encounters a Green Rider who begs this girl to carry his message, warning her not to read it. And when she reluctantly agrees, he makes her swear on his sword to complete his mission for love of country. So it's about, I think, this girl who needs to go on a mission and complete this mission. Sounds interesting, but I think I'm probably going to read the third book that she said. I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, because it's probably a nonfiction. It is a memoir. I think it's about her story. It's an autobiography. Then we have Lori Dawson, and she says that her favorite book is a series, which first book is called Moon Called by Patricia Briggs. I'm gonna read this because it's the only book that she told me was her favorite. So let's see what it's about. I think I've searched this before. It's probably about a werewolf, yeah. And Mercy's next door neighbor is a werewolf. Her former boss is a gremlin, and she's fixing a bus for a vampire. So it sounds like a fantasy, urban fantasy, paranormal with all these different creatures. And it makes me think of years back when there were those series with werewolves and vampires. So awesome. Then we have Nicole at Beautiful Chaos, and she says that her favorite book is Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine. I'm currently reading this for Mental Health-a-thon, and I'm enjoying it so far. It's about this woman who lives an ordinary life, honestly. She has a routine, and I'm only 100 pages through, so I haven't discovered yet about her past, maybe. So I'm currently reading that. Lastly, we have at Bookish Ginger, and she tells me that her favorite book is The Clan of the Cave Bear by John M. Auel. It's a series. This is interesting because, as I understand, it is set in Ice Age, so that is enough for me to put it on my TBR, and I'm gonna try and read this book. So yeah, guys, that is it for part 1. Definitely stick around for part 2. I can't wait to read some of your favorite books. I've already hinted on some of them that I'm going to read, but there are definitely others that I need to think about. And during the summer, I'm definitely gonna read at least one of your favorite books in your lists. I like these type of videos, and I hope you do too. I'll see you in my next video. Bye!